Hello, I'm Hana, a North Korean defector living in South Korea. Thank you for visiting Hanaya YouTube channel. Let me make a cup of coffee first. It's quite hot these days. I didn't even know what coffee was when I was in North Korea. When I had just defected, there was so much delicious food, but I really couldn't understand why people drank bitter coffee. I haven't been running my YouTube channel for very long, but I have many concerns. I started it because I wanted to share my somewhat unique story with more people, but it's not easy. I have no idea where or how to start.
이야기는 하고 싶던데 어떻게 하지? 그래, 나도 할 수 있는 게 있을 거야. 제 소개부터 해야 될 것 같아요. 근데 소개는 뭘로 하지? 사진으로 하겠습니다.
I currently live in South Korea with a South Korean soldier serving on the front lines near North Korea. Is it fate playing a trick? I risked my life to escape North Korea, and now I live with a South Korean soldier in the demilitarized zone near North Korea. These photos are of my husband when he was a child. It looks a lot like a photo of me as a child in North Korea. This is a photo my husband took during training. Most of my husband's photos are of him wearing his military uniform. This photo tells a lot of my family story. No matter how smart the world gets, the best memory keeper is still a photo. Turns out photos are the true analog geniuses of emotion. Unfortunately, I can't show you a picture of me as a kid. Instead, I'll show you a video about my hometown. I can't go back to my hometown, but I'm amazed and grateful that I can see it like this on a satellite image. My hometown is Cheongjin City, North Hamgyong Province, a key area in the Korean peninsula close to China, Russia, and Japan. It's the northernmost part of the Korean peninsula and very close to Russia, so it's also a very cold place. On the other hand, my husband was born in the southernmost part of the Korean peninsula. So he's from the very north and I'm from the very south of the Korean peninsula. I risked my life to come all the way to South Korea to live with this man. Who would have thought we'd meet? When I think of my hometown, I feel sad and I think a lot. This is a picture of my hometown, Cheongjin. Cheongjin was the site of the largest number of starvation deaths in North Korea during Kim Jong-il's famine. But it seems to be a little better now that it's close to China, Russia, and Japan. My mom went to my maternal grandmother's house to avoid starving to death when starvation was at its worst in Cheongjin City. If you take a train for about 6 hours from Cheongjin, you'll reach my mother's hometown. My mother's hometown is a border area near the Tumen River where you can see China right in front of you. I lived with my grandmother in my mother's hometown in the video until I defected. This place hasn't changed at all. Because it's a border area, North Korean soldiers are always on guard and high voltage wires are installed to prevent people from defecting. This is a bridge connecting North Korea and China, and it's the customs office. I can see my maternal grandmother's house and the road I was walking on in between. I can even see the railroad where my uncle worked. My mother was a high school English teacher here. I can also see the school where my mother taught students. I've walked this road countless times, and even when I was little, I always thought this while looking at the bright lights of China. The Chinese people live so brightly, so why do we have to live in such a dark place without electricity? Perhaps that question gave me the courage to defect. I crossed the Tumen River and defected to China, where the lights were shining brightly, back in 2000. However, in China, I solved my hunger, but this time the fear of being an illegal immigrant surrounded me. Then one day I met a Korean soldier in China. There was a lot of risk in what we were doing together. Meeting a South Korean soldier was like committing suicide for me. But I risked my life once again. Love can make you give up your one and only life like that. I never imagined that my life would flow and take me all the way to South Korea like this. Even this moment, making a YouTube video feels like a dream to me. Unfortunately, there are no photos of my life in North Korea in this photo album. All I brought with me from North Korea was the name my parents gave me. Therefore, a part of my life remains in the past in a place called North Korea. From the moment I escaped North Korea through China to marrying a Korean man and settling in South Korea, I've crossed many boundaries and overcome adversity to grow up. This is a photo taken on the day I married my South Korean soldier husband, wearing traditional wedding clothes. But he doesn't look like he wants to get married. Why is that? This kind of expression was captured in the photo. As expected, all that remains are photos. In the future, on this channel, I want to share our special love story, one that could only happen on the Korean peninsula, just like in the drama Crash Landing on You, along with my unique perspective from having lived under both systems in Korea. Thank you for watching so far. Stay tuned for the next installment. Hello, I'm Hana, a North Korean defector living in South Korea. Thank you for visiting my Hanaya YouTube channel. It's such a hot day today. I should have a nice cold glass of juice with ice. I really struggled with where to start with my slightly unique story. South, I've decided to create videos based on the writing I've been doing. After much deliberation, I decided to make a video of what I was writing about. I don't speak English very well, so we put a lot of effort into narration and translated subtitles. But I'll keep working hard even if it takes some time. If you leave feedback on the English subtitles or narration in the comments, it will be a huge encouragement for me. Thank you. Typically, most North Korean defectors, after escaping through North Korea and China, undergo an initial investigation at the South Korean embassy in Thailand, Vietnam, or Europe. After that, they usually take a flight to South Korea. However, the way I entered South Korea was a bit different, so I'm going to start sharing my story from the moment I arrived in South Korea. When I think of the word arrival, I'm reminded of that moment when I first set foot on South Korean soil, feeling both excited and nervous. The plane touched down smoothly on the runway, as if gliding carefully. I double-checked the seat belt, feeling a slight tremor in my fingertips. My body was reacting faster than I was prepared for. Amidst expectation, fear, and an indescribable trembling, my mind was still somewhere high above, even higher than where we'd taken off. The in-flight announcement came on.
비상구마다 안내 사인이 있으므로 가까운 비상구의 위치를 확인해 주세요.
It was the first time I'd ever heard an announcement in Korean. They were words I had learned well, but the speed, intonation, and way of speaking felt strangely unfamiliar, like a rhythm from another world. I could hear the sentences, but their meaning felt distant. I stopped trying to follow the voice, and without realizing it, my gaze shifted to the window. Beneath the darkening evening sky, the city sparkled like a jewelry box someone had carefully opened. Countless lights scattered across the ground, each one twinkling like a living thing. Faced with the beautiful, unreal scene, I felt rather afraid. Will my life ahead also shine like those lights? Could the shadow I've hidden deep within my heart swallow even that light? Questions with no one to ask and no one to answer echoed quietly within me, along with a burden I couldn't completely share, not even with my loved one. The airplane door opened and people began to move all at once. Among those laughing on the phone, naturally pulling their carry-ons and moving with an air of certainty, I felt especially out of step, awkward, and it seemed like only my footsteps echoed loudly. The airport was wider and more orderly than any place I had known. The polished marble floors, the clear glass walls, even the mechanical sounds felt orderly and refined. Everything felt like it was quietly asking, "Why are you here?" I forced myself to maintain a calm expression, but inside, an unfamiliar tension was quietly lurking. I wanted to step away from the flow for a moment. While looking around to catch my breath, a small sign caught my eye. Restroom. The moment I stepped inside, my feet stopped. It was so clean, my first thought was, is this really a public restroom? A scent brushed past my nose, momentarily taking my breath away. Warmth and coolness, unfamiliarity and novelty quietly coexisted in one space. It was a moment where I felt the world had changed with just one scent. That space was like a small boundary line between this world and me. A sanctuary where I could briefly stay and catch my breath. Slightly relaxed, I approached the sink to wash my hands. But I couldn't see a button for the water. Hesitantly, I reached out my hand and suddenly, whoosh, a stream of water poured out. When I pulled my hand back in surprise, it stopped, and when I reached out again, it flowed again. I repeated this a few times and I couldn't help but chuckle. It felt like the first greeting from a new world. In that brief moment, I lowered one layer of the boundary within me. Just a very thin layer. When I stepped back into the hallway after briefly relaxing, the bright lights and bustling atmosphere of the airport pulled me back to reality. Right away, the tension quietly followed. In front of the immigration counters, people stood in long lines with spaces in between. As I slowly approached the lines, I alternated between looking at both to see which one to go to. One line was long and stretched out, while the other was almost empty. The face of my husband, waiting for me beyond the doors, flashed in my mind at that moment. Before my head could get complicated, my body reacted first. Without hesitation, I headed towards the short, empty line. But then, an airport employee raised their hand and blocked my way. "You need to go to the foreigners' line." Yes, I heard the words clearly, but my feet wouldn't move. The employee repeated themselves. "This line is for Republic of Korea passports only." At that moment, a wave surged within my chest. A foreigner? Me? The airport employee's single word felt both familiar and foreign, instantly shaking the identity within me. I turned around and walked towards the foreigner's line. I had only taken a few steps, but my heart felt much further away. The immigration officer continued with a refined voice. Why have you come to Korea? Where will you be staying during your visit, and with whom will you be staying? Those calm yet slightly imposing words sounded like this to my ears. Who are you? Are you someone who is allowed to be here? The fear that had grown even stronger because of my defection seemed to whisper in my ear that there was one truth I could never speak aloud. During the silence, my palms became clammy with nervousness, and tension crept down my neck as well. That day, all I thought was, if I just passed the immigration screening, I could finally live a stable life with my loved one. What would have changed in my life if I had said it then? The stamp went thump on the passport. Entry permitted. I bowed my head and said softly, "Thank you." The airport's last automatic door opened and a long breath escaped me. It was the breath of having survived again, a quiet sigh of self-consolation so no one would notice. Little did I realize that day, an undercurrent of anxiety had also been imprinted on my heart. So how did you like today's story? Have you ever heard about how they train huge elephants in circuses? It's sometimes called the elephant chain syndrome. I escaped the enormous prison that was North Korea, but it took me a long time to discover my true self and experience genuine freedom. I'm planning to continue sharing my journey through writing and videos. Stay tuned for the next installment. Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Hana and it's so nice to meet you. A North Korean defector living in South Korea. Welcome to the Hanaya YouTube channel. I wanted to share my story with more people beyond the barriers of language. So, the English narration in this video was created with the help of technology, with the sincere hope that my true feelings would be fully delivered. It's a method where an AI based on my own voice reads the translated script. I sincerely ask you to listen to my story and to join me on this journey of communication with your warm feedback. Thank you. My story of entering South Korea is a special one. It's like the K-drama Crash Landing on You. No, it's a story that goes even beyond that. I risked my one and only life not once, but twice. The first time to escape the massive prison known as North Korea. The second time to make my way to South Korea where the man I love lives. But what I gained after risking my life twice wasn't freedom, but a constant companion called anxiety. I risked my life to live, yet the very choices I made for survival were the ones that made me anxious. Since when, because of what, and why did I have to live in such a state of fear? I hope you'll stay with me to the end of my story, which is even more dramatic than a drama. I'll continue now. After finishing the immigration process and walking through the gate, I saw a man in the distance waving with both hands, his gaze fixed only on me. I walked and he stood still, waiting for me. In his eyes, I could see the past 4 months flowing like a river. A mix of overwhelming longing and the relief of our reunion was telling me more than any words ever could. In the brief moment he took my hand, I understood everything, how he had endured those 4 months and just how much he had been waiting for me. Standing next to him were 2 people who had come with him, his aunt and a senior colleague from his military unit. My husband introduced me to them.
This is my wife.
With a thin, nervous voice, I offered my greeting. Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you. His aunt squeezed my hand and said softly, You've been through so much to get here. After exchanging our first greetings, we left the airport and all got into the car together. During the entire drive, my husband never once let go of my hand. It wasn't awkward, nor was it too much. He held my hand like someone afraid to let go of a precious treasure he could finally touch after a long, painful wait. Feeling the warmth of his hand, I was taking my first steps into an unfamiliar world. Outside the window, the jewel-like city I had seen from the sky now flashed before my eyes. Everything I had gone through to reach this moment passed by like a panorama. After driving for some time, a question arose. Where exactly was I going? As we got further from the airport, the city lights grew faint and the world outside the window slowly darkened. Street lights became sparse, and I traced their dim glow with my eyes, wondering where that brilliant city had disappeared to. Where exactly was I going? I didn't know what lay at the end of this road, but it was okay. Because I was next to him. For the sole reason that I was by his side, I could quietly release my heart into this strange new world. After a long drive, we arrived at a restaurant near our new home to have a late dinner. The moment I walked through the door, my stomach was already cheering from the smell in the air. It wasn't simple hunger, it was the primal instinct of survival, of setting foot in a new world. My body was tense and my heart was frozen, but my stomach was more than ready to welcome its first meal here. While waiting for the food, an orchestra seemed to be tuning up in my stomach. I could hear the sound of meat sizzling on the grill, and I looked down at the single piece of meat placed on my plate. Just then, his aunt smiled warmly at me. Her gaze was a quiet comfort, as if to say, "It's okay, this is your place now." It was the kind of wisdom only held by those who have weathered the years, a sense older than words. In that gaze, I felt my heart opening up without me even realizing it. Knowing I liked meat, my husband kept grilling it for me. My husband's movements with the tongs were so skillful. He carefully placed each slice of pork belly on the grill. That sight felt as if he were laying down stepping stones, one by one, so I wouldn't lose my way in this new world. I wrapped a piece of meat in a fresh vegetable leaf and carefully took my first bite. The moment the juices burst inside my mouth, a wave of emotion surged up inside me. This was the first meal of a survivor, and it was the first warmth offered by the person I love. That meal was my very first in South Korea. After the meal, his aunt said her warm goodbyes and left. And my husband's senior colleague quietly drove us to our new home. Standing before an invisible threshold, my heart began to beat quietly. Opening the door was a simple act, but stepping inside meant carrying the entire weight of the life I had lived. My hand, held in my husband's, trembled slightly. Once I opened this door and stepped inside, a new life I could have never imagined would begin. As if he could read my mind, my husband came up behind me and gently wrapped an arm around my shoulder. Drawing courage from his warmth, I finally opened the door and stepped inside. My very first night in South Korea, spent with the man I love in this space where everything was a first. But was it truly as peaceful and beautiful as a dream? The beginning of my encounter with true daily life after escaping the massive prison of North Korea. The story of that first night will continue in the next episode. If you turn on notifications, you can be the first to join me on the next chapter of my story. Thank you. At 18, I risked my life to escape North Korea so I wouldn't starve to death. And at 24, I fell in love with a South Korean man I was never supposed to meet, and had to risk my life once more to escape from China. Just for being born in North Korea, I had to risk my life to eat, and I had to risk my life to love. As time passed, looking back at those times from where I am now, could I have ever imagined a day would come when I would share my story with people all over the world on YouTube? For me, born in North Korea, it was an impossible dream. All I could do was simply struggle to survive. The day I first set foot in Korea was winter. Unlike the biting winter of the north, the winter in the south was so cozy. Was it because I was with the person I love? A warmth was spreading from deep inside my heart. For the first time, I thought that maybe winter wasn't a season that had to push me away. However, living under the North Korean regime, anxiety and tension were always with me, as if they were part of my own body. If there was ever a moment I was innocent and happy without knowing anything, it was probably my purest childhood. Looking back now, those short, fleeting memories of happiness often became my lighthouse. Whenever I was lonely and struggling. However, the anxiety and tension, brainwashed and learned over a long time, would seep into my life like dark smoke. Even in front of the person I love, I couldn't let down my guard for even a moment. In this still unfamiliar sense of relief, I was tense and anxious. Finally, we arrived at the home where we would live together. Before the invisible threshold, my heart quietly began to pound. My husband pressed a button and opened the door. Opening the door was a simple act, but stepping inside meant dragging all the time I had walked through along with me. I slowly took off my shoes. From the tips of my toes, the warmth of the floor rose up, spreading the sensation of being alive throughout my body. The warm air spreading from within, a beautifully decorated living room, a quietly prepared bed, organized kitchenware. The entire atmosphere felt like a gift prepared just for me. My husband quietly took my hand It was a hand I had only been able to feel through a computer screen for so long. A person's body heat that had crossed winters. The story of our miracle-like meeting will be shared in the future. Past borders and turned through the years to finally rest upon my hand. My husband looking at me fondly with a warm smile, as if he knew everything. He just held me silently for a very, very long time. It felt like warm snow was gently falling down upon my frozen world. My husband led me to the bed. This was a movement created not by impulse nor by desire, but by waiting, a very quiet scene of victory, one that directly tore down the times the world had kept us from meeting. The warmth of the person I thought I would never meet quietly suppressed all my anxiety and tension. That night, we lay silently in each other's arms. Outside it was winter, but under the blankets there were no seasons. However, before I closed my eyes, an unavoidable ripple was spreading inside me. The fear that was not uprooted did not die. Anxiety, like a tiny blade of grass, was gently shaking under the blankets. On my first night after arriving in Korea, I could not fall asleep. It wasn't just because of the unfamiliar space. A soldier from a thoroughly hostile nation that started the Korean War is my husband. The reality I had never even imagined was simply unbelievable. What kind of world would be waiting for me? Would it be a truly scary and dangerous place if I say I'm from North Korea? Will it really be okay? It was clearly the path I had chosen, risking my life to find the person I love. But the emotions of joy, excitement, fear, and anxiety were all tangled together. And I, in the middle of it all, could not sort anything out. I was happy, but tense. I was relieved, but anxious. My body was finally by his side, but my heart, not yet having arrived anywhere, was just hovering in the unfamiliar space. And then a familiar fear, even in that safest of places, began to creep up from deep inside me. But in that moment, I was realizing it. About my very old survival instinct. I always hid my heart one step ahead, that it was less dangerous for emotions to reveal themselves later than the situation. I had known that for so very long. I had always survived that way. That night in his arms, I struggled to turn away from all this reality, forcefully suppressing the rising anxiety. I fought with all my might to somehow fall asleep. His safe embrace protected me from all the dangers of the world, but it could not protect me from the greatest danger of all, the one inside of me, myself. The journey toward true freedom, like that, was beginning again from the point of facing the deepest darkness inside of me. In the next story, I plan to share the stories of the countless firsts I had to face after becoming alone in this unfamiliar world, a world so similar yet so different. Please join me for those first steps, the ones filled with both laughter and sadness. Thank you.